to earn your doctorate, but you're just not sure how to start, this is the episode for you. So, in today's episode, we're going to talk about three strategies that will help you finish your dissertation in 2023. Uh, Again, I want to say thank you all so much for tuning in. It is good to see everybody. Happy New Year. I know it's been a while since we have been on, but I'm so excited to be with you all today. For those who know us, that I'm Dr. Going. I'm the host of the show. We actually are changing the name, so now the new name of the show will be From ABD to PhD Show. I'm your host, Dr. Goings, founder of Done Dissertation, where we demystify the dissertation process so that doctoral students can write and defend their dissertation in 1 year or less. I'm so excited to chat with you all about this because right now is the time when we are in this journey, and a lot of you all want to get this thing done. We want to figure out how we're going to do this, and you're just not sure where to go. And I want to give you some simple, actionable strategies and mindset shifts that you can make right now that will help you move this dissertation process along. In the meantime, if you are someone who, watching this online, please share this with two or three folks that you know that can provide and get value out of this. And then also, we are going to have this show now in an audio experience. So if you're listening to this on the podcast platform, please give us 5 stars and drop a comment in to let us know what you think about today's episode. And again, this episode is sponsored by the Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. It's our 4-month coaching experience designed to help you, the dissertation student, write and defend either your dissertation proposal or final dissertation in the next 4 months. So if you're interested in learning more and getting help to get out of the dissertation process for good, what I want you to do is visit www.velocitydissertation.com. So let's get into today's episode because we talk about, New Year, new me. And if you all are on our text message list, you've been getting the text from us. Our motto for this year for you all is like New Year, new me, the PhD in 2023. And so we want you all to get this doctorate done. And so I want to talk about three strategies today that will help you move the process forward. So the first strategy in order to end 2023 with a complete dissertation is that you have to be willing to become obsessed, obsessed with the dissertation journey and willing to do whatever it takes to reach your final goal. Over the weekend, I was watching, just happened to be scrolling through Instagram, and I saw this video from Kobe Bryant, and he talked about the idea that his goal was never to be, of course, he wanted to be the best, right? But his goal every time that he stepped on the court was to improve, and he got so obsessed with the journey rather than the end result. And he found that if he practiced, if he did all the things and practiced over and over and over again, that the end result of him being a miraculous player would happen as a result. And I think a lot of us need to think about the dissertation process in that way. Most of us go through this thing, not quite sure what to do because for many of us, like we don't have family members who are doctors. I know I didn't, so it's I'm just trying to figure out how do I make this process go. And a lot of us have been stuck and stagnant. But here's what you have to start thinking about. If you become obsessed with the journey, one question you're going to have to ask yourself is, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to finish the dissertation this year? That is the number one question that folks are going to have to consider. You have to ask yourself that question. And here's why. The dissertation process doesn't take long, but for many of us who have been stuck, the reason why we have been stuck is that we're letting a lot of other things take precedent and priority over the dissertation. I literally just had a conversation with one of our clients who was offboarding today, and we literally were talking about this. We're talking about the idea that, as doctoral students, we may have aging relatives that we're taking care of. We have children who are running us around, take me to practice, take me here, take me there. Or little ones, we're trying to figure out how do I write my dissertation while I have a 2 or 3 year old climbing all over me. In addition to that, I know a number of us have busy jobs, right? You're like, shoot, I'm running a school, or I'm a busy, person in higher education, or I'm running a nonprofit. I just don't have the time. And here's the important thing: when you start thinking through the strategy about willing to become obsessed with the journey and willing to do whatever it takes, you got to really be willing to make some sacrifices to get through this process. And yesterday during our office hour call with clients that are in the Velocity Group Coaching Program, one client we were talking about, and she even mentioned, like, look, I had to give up a job in order to give myself the time back I need to get to the dissertation. And that's something we really got to consider. I know we have life, so I understand we got responsibilities we got to take, but we have to be willing to give ourselves, the time and attention that the dissertation process needs. And then one thing I want you all to consider, right, is we're thinking about becoming obsessed with the journey, and that all that takes is a mindset shift. So the strategy there is like, hey, I have to change how I'm thinking right now because a lot of us are approaching the dissertation oftentimes as a tactical process. Like, Dr. Goins, teach me how to write, or Dr. Goins, how do I write the literature review? It's like you get so tactical, right? But what you all are probably learning very quickly is that the dissertation process is actually more mental than it is tactical. And what that means is we have to develop our brain power in order to get through this process. Because now, me being 7 years removed, right? So I got my doctorate in 2015, and me being so far removed and kind of reflecting back on that experience, what I learned is that the dissertation process was actually like a psychological journey. It wasn't even about the writing. Like once my mind clicked, and I was like, "Yo, I don't care what y'all say." There's a video with Denzel Washington and Jamie Foxx, and Denzel says, "You know what? Say he said, I'm from around the way. I'm living here with something." That once you have that mindset, you actually are willing to implement and do whatever it takes to get there, the process becomes quite simple to get through. But a lot of us are not willing to make that sacrifice because it's easier to sit where we are right now, which sounds crazy. It's easier to be ABD, and complain about not being done than to change our mindset, to change our action in order to do something different and earn our degree. And that's just quite frankly, we've gotten comfortable and complacent with the ABD status, and I don't want that all for you all. So this is why the first strategy, you have to become willing to be obsessed with the journey and do whatever it takes. And I would love to know for those of you who are watching this live, and let me know in the comments. I love to have exchange with you all. What is it that you need to sacrifice, whether it's your professionally in your home life, whatever it is? What are you willing to sacrifice, or what do you need to sacrifice in order to finish your dissertation this year? Let me know in the comments. And for those of y'all who might be watching some replay, let me know wherever you see this what your thoughts are. 'Cause y'all, it's getting so important. I want to see y'all win. We want to see you all win. Our clients are out here winning, getting through the dissertation journey. Shout out to Ron, who recently defended his dissertation proposal. These are the things we want you all to see, and we want to give you all the strategy to do so. But first things first, I don't care what tactical strategy I teach you. If you don't have the mindset to actually implement and execute the strategy, it doesn't even matter. I can lay out the whole thing for you, but if you're not willing to implement, it doesn't matter one bit. And Brandy on YouTube says sleep. I love it. She says sleep. I need my job. Hey, sleep might be important. That's something that you definitely need to do. I know in my book, 14 Secrets to Dissertation, Brandy, I had this idea what I talk about. It's called dissertation intoxication. And for a lot of folks, we become so obsessed with the actual writing up about the dissertation process, about the dissertation, that we start like losing sleep and we don't get sleep. And all those things impact us going through the process because it's such a psychological journey. We need that mental space to get through this. So that I definitely understand. You said I'm not going to wake up early. So that makes sense because I'm going to wake up early. I'm sorry. You're going to start waking up early, Brandy. I like that. Everybody's got to kind of figure out what their own writing time is. That's why when people ask me, when should I write? I'm like, whatever time your brain works best. Like for me, my writing time is in the morning. I thought that when I was a student, it made sense for my schedule. When the pandemic happened and, my daughter, who's 4 now, was home, my wife and I, we would, watch her during the day, get everything she needed. And then I had to learn how to become an evening writer because at that point, I was trying to write publications so I could get tenure promotions. So those sacrifices I had to make, I had to learn how to become a night writer. So I would write from like 10 to 11:30 midnight. And those are the things you just got to figure out as you get through this process. I'm glad to hear, Brandon, that you're willing to get up early and sacrifice some of that sleep. And Nate on Instagram says, I completed my journey 2 years ago, but I will share this video with a few of my friends who are still going through the process. Nate, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for sharing. I'll make sure that you have a copy. We'll post this and make sure that you have a copy that you can share out. And then also for those who are watching, we do have these episodes stored on our YouTube channel. So if you just type in Done Dissertation on YouTube, you can go and subscribe to our channel. You have access to all of our past episodes. And Eureka, good to see you. I'm glad that you're checking in. Good to hear from you. And so again, the first strategy that we talked about is this idea that you have to become obsessed with the dissertation journey, not the actual writing part. Because again, that's the part I want y'all to start thinking about. The journey I want to become what you become obsessed with. And as a result of becoming obsessed with the journey, the end result of you actually defending and finishing up will happen. I have no doubt about it. It will definitely happen. And as we transition to strategy number two, again, this episode is sponsored by the Dissertation Philosophy Coaching Program. It's a 4-month coaching experience with the goal to help you write and defend your dissertation proposal or final defense in the next 4 months. So if you're someone who needs some support, you're tired of going through this process alone, and know you might need help to push you through the finish line, you can visit our website at www.velocitydissertation.com to learn more and to apply. And thank you for everybody who's tuning in and dropping in. I got Ron. Shout out to Ron who's jumping in from YouTube. Ron is one of our past clients who just defended his proposal maybe 2 weeks ago now. So with that, I want to talk about the next strategy. So let's talk about the second strategy that will help you in 2023 with a done dissertation in your PhD. Your job is to make your writing goal every time you sit down to write, your writing goal is to have the most sloppiest draft as possible, and I want you to start writing out of order. This is a strategy that I want you to start implementing ASAP in your writing, because here's what I started to learn by working with so many students in our program is that a lot of you all get caught up with the idea, and this is how we're taught to write, right? When we're like in elementary school, middle school, we have the 5 paragraph essay, intro, point one, point two, point three, conclusion. That is not what I would recommend when you're writing your dissertation. It's okay. I would actually write out of order and be okay with that. But what this is going to require you to do is to stop being a perfectionist. And so, real quick, I want to just take a quick poll of folks who are on live. If you are a perfectionist, drop me a hand raise emoji or something in the chat. Even say that's me in the comments, so I know who I'm talking to. So I know there's somebody who's watching who is a perfectionist, and I just know my audience, and that this happens with us because we've been good all of our lives academically, and so we want things to be perfect because that's just how we're taught. Brandy puts the sad face emoji. Like we know how this goes. It's just part of how these things go. And shout out to the physiologist for jumping on in the PWN001. I'm not sure who you are. Please let me know your name. I'll definitely call by name. And so again, this is important because being a perfectionist is really something that will get in our way, and it gets in a lot of my clients' ways at times as we're trying to get through the process. And thank you all for the emoji. I guess there's a lot of perfectionists in the group. I just know how this goes. It's all good. I'm going to give you some strategy on how to overcome the perfectionism. And if you're listening to this on the audio experience, this is the time to go ahead and give us 5 stars and drop a comment and let us know what you think about today's episode, because I know there's some perfectionists in there who are going to be listening to this on the audio as well. So I'm gonna give you 2 things to think about when I talk about actually writing out of order and not being concerned with how perfect your draft is. You want to be sloppy. First things first is that you have to recognize immediately, like today, you leave today's session with me knowing that your writing will never be perfect. Like just let that go. There's so much that holds you all up, and perfection in writing is one of those things. Is like let that go because it doesn't serve you. What it does serve is for you to stay stuck. Because what I know is that we get into this cycle because when the writing's not perfect, what we do as a result is that we procrastinate. And then when we procrastinate on writing, we get so discouraged, like, oh man, I should have wrote that chapter 3 weeks ago. And now you're like, forget it, it's not perfect, so I'm not gonna submit it. And then we get into this whole vicious cycle. And before you look up, you spend 6 months just like kind of like noodling around, just playing around, maybe rewriting that same paragraph or those same sections over and over again. And you have to get over that. This is why I recommend your goal every time you sit down to write is to have the sloppiest draft as quickly as you possibly can. Because what you can do from there is an edit. But if the draft is not on paper, no one can help you. You having these ideas in your head, the dissertation has to be written, it has to be communicated. So you got to get it down on paper in whatever way makes best sense for you. That's something you got to do. And I also don't want you to think about it being perfect for another reason, because your faculty member was your chair, your committee member, they are going to find something wrong each and every time. Y'all know it's true. You could just say, I got this chapter as perfect as I could get. And they'll still say, you know what? I didn't really care for how you position this idea. Maybe think about it this way. There's always going to be some feedback. So why worry yourself with trying to get it perfect when you know that they are going to have something to say. And in my book, 14 Secrets to a Done Dissertation, I talk about this idea of the 80% rule. So your job is to get it 80% satisfactory and then submit it to your chair and committee in order to help them push you the other 20% to get it done. For a lot of y'all, that may actually be something that might save you today, and you may have a chapter that you're sitting on right now that you don't want to submit because it's not perfect. I want you all, if you have a chapter that's done, it is in decent shape, submit that thing to your chair tomorrow, and then drop me a DM letting me know that you did. And I got a special something for you if you end up doing that. Just let me know if you go ahead and take the action to actually submit the chapter. A lot of us are sitting on great work, but we're scared to send it. But this all gets around to the writing process, us being afraid because we feel like it's not perfect. But the goal in the writing is get sloppy because we need it on paper. And I want to give you a more tactical strategy as well around this that you can take and implement immediately. So here's how I approach writing. And so if you want to know how does someone, and I've been highly published as an author, at this point I have about over 60 publications. I understand this process like inside and out. And my coaches are dope writers too, and I've learned the methods, and they are also prolific scholars. And here's what I've learned, and here's how I approach my writing, and I literally implement this all the time. Is that when I go to sit down and write, so for you all, this will be your dissertation chapter, right? Whatever chapter you're working on or work on. The first thing I do is I write out all of the headers of the chapters. So of that particular chapter, excuse me. So if I'm working on the literature review, I might have a header for the introduction because I know I'm gonna need an intro. For me, I may have a methods section in my literature review where I talk about how I got my articles, etc. So I know I need a methods section, that'll be a header. And then I know I probably have 5, 6, 7, whatever how many themes come up in my literature review. I would have each of those as a header on my paper. And then within those bigger headers, big headers, I may have some subsections that help me achieve the goal of the header for that big section. I would header my whole, chapter out. And then what I do is every time I sit down to write, I focus on one of the small sections, maybe within a header that gets me done and gets me one step closer. Because what will end up happening, let's say, for instance, one of the sections was called, I'm gonna use my research area around Black male student success in higher ed. One of my areas I remember for my dissertation was the experiences of high achieving Black men at predominantly white institutions. And within that big section on experiences of high achieving Black men at predominantly white institutions, I had a small subsection on how Black men navigate their double consciousness on predominantly white campuses. And so my goal when I go to sit down and write then will be to focus on that section on double consciousness that day. And that way to try to get it sloppy, get it done as best as I can. And it may take you a couple of days to finish out sections, right? Every section has its own unique characteristics. It may take you a lot longer or sometimes shorter. But you want to focus on those small sections, and before you know it, and write them out of order, right? Whichever one comes easiest to you that particular day. Because as you all are thinking, I know a lot of us approach this as a scientific process, but there's some creative aspect to finishing your dissertation. I think a lot of us don't give credit to it, and a lot of professors don't teach it in that way. But me being a musician and my background in music, I started to recognize that as a musician, when I'm creating music, I'm creating things that was not there before I started playing. And the same thing is happening with your dissertation. A lot of you all creating new knowledge that didn't exist before you started this dissertation. And so we have to give it some kind of respect that it deserves around, the dissertation process being more um, creative. And so what I do is every time I sit down and write, I write the section that comes easiest. And then before you know, I bounce around. And then before all the sections are done. And then what I do is written. Then I will do a full read through from top to bottom. Now is when you can start to understand, does my argument make sense? Is it linear? All those things start to happen because you start seeing it from like point A, point B, point C. But first things first, you got to get it all sketched out and onto the paper. If that's something that resonated with you, let me know in the comments. I see Dana on LinkedIn said that's a good idea of something to consider. Like this is something that you can implement immediately if you don't already have a writing process. And thank you all. Thank you to Michael for the thumbs up. I appreciate it because these are things that you all can implement right now. And again, we're all about the understation, easy, actionable strategies, and that's one that you can do today. And if something resonates with you and you have a question, I'll take questions at the end during the Q&A. So I'll be happy to. So if you have questions, drop them in the comments, and I definitely will loop back around to your questions that you all might have. And in the future, I want to make this. I'm interested to know too. Let me know if you all interested to make this more live and interactive, where you actually come on and ask your question. We have an exchange. So I'm thinking about adding that as a wrinkle to the show. But just let me know your thoughts. Shoot me a message. Let me know what you all think. And again, I hope this is helpful for you all as you think about your strategy getting through the dissertation process in 2023. And there's no reason why sitting right now, January 2023, that if you're writing a dissertation, you should not be done by the end of this calendar year. There'd be no reason at this point. If you're writing and you have at least have your data close to your data collected, or if your data collection process doesn't take a while, 2023 should be the year you finish. At the very latest, like March of 24, if you're starting like right now, fresh out with your dissertation. And again, we want to talk about these strategies. And again, I'm Dr. Ramon Goins. I'm founder of Done Dissertation, where we demystify the dissertation process so that doctoral students can write and defend a dissertation in 1 year or less. This episode from ABD to PhD show is sponsored by the Done Dissertation Velocity Group Coaching Program. Is a 4-month coaching experience with the goal to help doctoral students write and defend the dissertation proposal or final dissertation in the next 4 months. So if you're interested in learning more and helping you get through and want support to get through the process, Feel free to visit our website at www.velocitydissertation.com to learn more about our program and click a button to apply to work with us. We do have slots in our program for you all. And so, as we go to our last strategy for today, I want us to continue to think about how we're going to implement. I'm all about action. So, at the end of this, I want to hear from you all about your actions that you're going to take after today's live. So, the third strategy, what I want you to do in order, if you're trying to end 2023 with a done dissertation and your PhD, what I want you to do is you have to cultivate right now a working relationship with your dissertation chair immediately. I promise you all that is so important and it's a strategy you have to implement. Here's why. Your dissertation chair is the guide to getting through this process. They are the person that's going to see you the most. They're going to read your document the most, and they have the most invested in you to get through this process. And so, what you're going to want to start doing is you got to immediately build a working relationship. So, I know a lot of you all sometimes just like say, "Hey, my chair is unresponsive," and those types of things. But I want you all to start really addressing this. Look at this process as being a proactive one, where you can take more control and ownership over the journey. A lot of us sit back and wait for our chairs to do stuff for us, but I want you all to start taking the driver's seat and actually just guide this process. But a lot of you all may find that you may have severed the relationship with your chair, or just have been you haven't been in communication. So I want to give you again a practical strategy that you can use right now that will get you one step closer to building that working relationship with your chair. Here's what you do. I want you tonight to write this email out and you're going to schedule to send tomorrow. If you find that you have not been in communication with your chair, even if you haven't been in communication since the break, from the winter break and you're coming back to the semester, I want you to send this email. In the email, what you want to say is like tell your chair kind of where you are in the process right now, what you've been writing and working on. If you have something that you need to send to them, I want you to tell them what it is you're gonna send to them and put a date on it. Put a date that you can actually satisfy and submit on that date, because here's what I want you to all to start doing, is to actually train your chair that to know that you are serious. And so, when you put that date and you hit that first deadline, they know, okay, they're not playing. Like I'm looking at my list, they say Brandy's not playing today because, she said that she was gonna have this document back to me on January 31st. And look at it, it's January 30th, and that document was in my email. So whatever date you say in this email, you got to nail the deadline. Because now we're gonna shape how this process will moving forward, but you got to hit the deadline. And then lastly, you want to conclude in this email to ask your chair for time to meet with them just to catch up, maybe 20 minutes to 30-minute meeting. So you don't stop trying to get an hour-long meeting, y'all. Y'all have to learn how to be a little more efficient with your time. You're gonna have to do, 20, 30-minute meetings. And what I suggest when you go into these meetings, have an agenda. You have items that you want to talk about so that it's easy to go through this meeting. And it makes it something that peers actually want to do because being a professor, we're real busy, have a lot of other things that are going on, and sometimes it just time gets away from us. And so, send that request a meeting, and then when you get on this meeting, I want you to be prepared to ask your chair to ask them, what is the cadence that we can have, regularly scheduled meetings on? And for some of y'all, be okay with them saying, hey, we can meet once per month. Y'all gonna have to be okay with that because that might be the time that the chair has to give. Like we had some clients doing recently, and they're like, hey, I got my chair has 17 students. I just know from having a lot of students, like, and you don't have, in fact, when you don't have a system, that could be overwhelming. And so a lot of times they don't have the time to devote. And so you may need a month in between meetings, but that's okay because you're always going to be moving the process along. I'd say one step ahead of your chair. But this is important. You got to get this meeting scheduled. So send this email, get it scheduled tonight to send out tomorrow morning. This is going to be really important as you all are, trying to get through the decision process in 2023. And so just to recap, we talked about three strategies that you can implement to get through your dissertation process quickly. The first one is that you have to be willing to become obsessed with the dissertation journey and do whatever it takes to reach your goal of finishing. Strategy number two is that you have to make your goal of writing to have the sloppiest draft as possible and write out of order. And then strategy three is that you have to right now cultivate a working relationship with your dissertation chair. And as we always want to give more value for you all at Done Dissertation, I want to give a bonus, additional strategy that I want you all to think about and implement. And the bonus strategy is that I want you all to start thinking about seeking out support outside of your university if you continue to remain stagnant in the process. I've seen it too far often. A lot of us are so stuck and so complacent with being where we are that we don't get help. And a lot of times our egos get in the way because we feel like we shouldn't get help. And a lot of times it's like how the doctoral journey is framed for students. So it's not your fault necessarily per se. Sometimes as professors, we frame it in a way that makes it so like mysterious and something that like you feel like you should just do it all alone. And that's not the case, right? You should definitely get help if you have been, sitting around and not getting to where you want to be in this process. There's nothing wrong with that. And here's what I do know. Every semester that you stay stuck and where you are, that's time away from your family. Because remember, you've done these coursework, you spend time reading and writing during your courses, whether in your dissertation, so that's time away from your family. That is money out of your bank account because every semester you don't finish, you don't have your earned doctorate, and that doctorate brings on more income generating opportunities. Trust me, I know there's so much you can do with your doctorate, and there's so much money to be made. But if you're being stuck, you're missing out on those opportunities. And most importantly, is that you're sacrificing the impact that your research can. I'm just thinking about some of the folks we interviewed recently. Just think of Dr. Jada Suber, who's now a postdoc at Harvard, but her research is on peanut allergies. I think about our a client of ours, Ron, who just defended his work with looking at, in terms of when your information is compromised, what does that mean for your satisfaction with the company? Like those are things that have real world implications for people. Like, and I would hate for your research to be sitting on your computer and not out impacting the communities only because you don't seek support. And here's what support looks like. It might be getting an editor. So maybe, as you're doing your writing, you recognize that, hey, my writing is, I got my writing good enough, but I might need an editor to help polish my writing. For some of y'all, it might be, you're in your data analysis, you might need a statistician to kind of help, maybe help you with your stats. May need a refresher. For some of y'all, it might be a coach. So it might be working with us at the Understation Velocity Group Coaching Program to get a more hands-on guide to getting through the journey with folks who have been through it and to have that community. So sometimes I think that's really important for a lot of students is to have that community and support. A lot of us feel like we're going through it by ourselves. And then for other folks, it might just be help might look like you just getting a babysitter and having somebody to help watch the kids while you are, going somewhere else to write, or someone to take the kids somewhere while so you can have uninterrupted time that you can dedicate to your dissertation. Remember what I said. You're going to have to ask for what you want and sacrifice something, but you're going to do whatever it takes to get to the goal. Because what I do know, this dissertation can be done this year in 2023 if you want to implement and put the strategy in. And with that, for those who might be interested in getting some more, extra support, our coaching program, the Velocity Group Coaching Program, is here to help support you and is a very hands-on experience to help you get through your dissertation proposal or final defense in the next 4 months. So we're all about fast tracking things at done dissertation. That's why we work with you. We have a proven system that gets folks done. If you implement and you're willing to make these sacrifices and do the things we're telling you to do, there's no reason why you can't finish your entire dissertation this year if you're just starting out. And for my folks who are like past proposal defense, there's no reason why you can't be done and walk across that stage in May. And if you find that you need that support, you want to do that, but you just can't figure out how to do it on your own, you definitely need to reach out to us. Visit www.velocitydissertation.com to learn more about our program. And for those of y'all who are watching this on the video, please, subscribe to Done Dissertation on our YouTube channel. Just type in Done Dissertation in the search bar on YouTube. You will find our videos so you can get to access to past video content from us. And for those of you all who are listening to this on the audio experience, please, 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 it would be very helpful if you give us 5 stars and drop also a comment to let us know what you thought about today's episode. And with that, I would love to take any questions that folks might have. Drop them in the comments. I'd be glad to bring them up. For my folks on Instagram, if you actually want to come up and ask your question, just put a request in. And then once I finish up the live here, I'll bring you on. Any questions? And again, if you're watching this, share this on your timeline, whether you're watching on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, wherever you're watching this, send it to somebody else who needs it. Share this post out so folks in your network, because I know you all are connected to other doc students who might need the support. So make sure that you all do that for me. I really appreciate it. And shout out to everybody who's been tuning in today. We have Brandy on YouTube, Yurita on LinkedIn, Ron on YouTube. Let's see. Woody on LinkedIn. Sorry, my computer's real small on these names. Michael on LinkedIn, Dana on LinkedIn. Thank you all so much. So Brandy has a question from YouTube. And she asked editor questions. Should I get someone skilled in the field I am writing about, or it doesn't matter? So when you get editors, Brandy, the purpose of the editor is to actually, provide technical edits to your dissertation. They're not someone that's going to be, focused on the actual content, because that's what your chair and committee are there to do. So your editor, you just want someone. I think it's helpful to have someone who has a PhD to do your edit. It's not required though, but you want someone who's pretty skilled. If they don't have a PhD, because there's something just nuances that someone with a PhD would know. But if they don't have a PhD, which is fine, because I had an editor that worked for us for a long time that I used. A shout out to Nadira, who did not have a doctorate but was so skilled as an editor. So you just want to find somebody who's highly skilled. That might be getting referrals. We have someone that we can refer you to here. At that point, if you just shoot me a DM, I'll send you a referral for an editor that I use personally in my own work. That you can work with if you need an editor. But the editors are going to help you just make sure that it looks clean and polished. Like they want to make your writing look better. Um, so that is something that's going to be really important for you all in this process. And shout out to Sarah. I see you joining on as a Velocity client. Good to see you, Sarah. So, Brandy, that I hope that answers your question, because it's not necessary. Uh, you know, I have an editor that works for me. I'm an education researcher. She's in forensic psychology in terms of her background, but she edits work and does a great job. So you want someone who's really good with words and that can really help you. The next question comes from Mia Fulton on YouTube, and she says, "Hi, Dr. Goins. I'm currently in my data collection phase. Will the Velocity program help me get my dissertation proposal done to get it approved faster? Thank you." Great question, Mia, and the answer is yes. What I would recommend you do is go to our website, www.velocitydissertation.com, and apply to work with us. And then from there, we'll have a call with you to learn more about where you are and how we can help move you forward. So without really knowing like the insides of like what your program is and where you are, because I know you talk about you're collecting data, but you haven't. I'm assuming you haven't defended your proposal yet. So lots that seems out of order, but every program is different. So make sure you reach out to us and apply. That way we can have a conversation with you to talk more to see if we're a right fit for where you are right now. But I believe so. I mean, when we have folks who are at the dissertation collection phase, we're trying to help you all get out of this program ASAP. So, me, I hope that was helpful. Or shoot me a message on, I think, YouTube, or drop a comment. Just let me know where to reach out to me, and I'd be glad to talk more with you. And Brandy, thank you so much. Brandy said this is good information. I appreciate that. Any other questions that folks might have? I'll leave a couple more minutes for you all. Perfect, Mia. Yeah, definitely reach out. 'Cause like I said, I don't want to say that, I want to make sure we know where you are in the process so that we can help you. And if we can't help you, we can send you to somebody else who can, or give you some insight on what you might be able to do. We're all about like helping folks make informed decisions and get the help that they need to hurry this process up and get out of these programs. Any other questions? My folks on Instagram, any questions? And last thing before we wrap up, if you're listening, wherever you're listening to this or watching this, if you ever have any questions or ideas for future episodes or things you want us to touch on this season through our video content, please shoot us a message wherever you can find us on any social media platform. We do want to be responsive to what you all would like to hear more about. And so if there are things that really resonate with you that you really want to get insight on, please, please, please send us a message so that we know the types of content that you all want to hear about and learn more about in the future. But before we wrap up, I want to say thank you so much to everybody who dropped in. This is a From ABD to PhD show. I'm your host, Dr. Ramon Goings, founder of Done Dissertation. We demystify the dissertation process so that the doctoral student can write and defend your dissertation in 1 year or less. If you're interested in learning more about our programs, make sure that you visit www.velocitydissertation.com to learn about our Done Dissertation Velocity Coaching Program. The program is designed over the next 4 months to help you write and defend either your dissertation proposal or final dissertation. It doesn't take long to finish this, but it takes some sacrifice of time. It takes some sacrifice of energy, and also it just takes a commitment. So if you're ready to do those things and you're just tired of being stuck where you are and want to get this doctorate done to do all the great things you want to do as doctor, please, please, please reach out so that we can learn more about where you are in your dissertation process to find out if we can help you get to the next phase in your journey. But we will do these typically on every week. So be tuned and stay tuned for episodes that come out. And I look forward to talking to you all soon. I look forward to catching with you all on the internet. And until next week, I hope you have a great week. Take care. and stay blessed.